But I'm fine. How are you guys?
Okay. Sean wants to be a little crybaby again.
I know, I'm
And of
sorry.
course, joining us as well, Brenden Nunes from the King's Pulse podcast. Brenden, how are you?
I'm doing good. Nothing of note on my end. I don't have any weather takes or anything like that, so I'm doing all right. What about
Sorry,
yourself, James?
that was weird. One of our old shows started playing while we're sitting here talking. Um, yeah, this is kind of cool. I love the snow, and I'm waiting for it to snow. I just keep waiting. It's one of those times though where I hate this part of it because if it doesn't snow, then you're totally disappointed. Like, so I will keep looking out the window. I drove home from practice today. I stopped at 13:20, jumped on with D'Lo and KC, and we argued a bunch of weird stuff.
Uh-oh.
And yeah, it was just like a random day with those guys. And then, of course, we discussed the book Loose Balls at the end.
Jason
which,
Williams.
No, Loose Balls is the CBA, the
Oh.
old basketball league.
Well, the
CB?
Jason Williams who shot a guy, the former New Jersey Nets center.
It too
had a
is called Loose
book
Balls?
Also called Loose Balls. Yeah.
Well, that's not
Imagine
great.
that. No,
Yeah.
not well.
Boy, now
got
my
all
phone
kinds
is
of stuff
talking.
going on.
What is happening tonight?
You
Weird
got
stuff
new
is
internet.
happening.
You said new internet. You said
I did get new internet, but that was like my phone trying to digest loose balls. I'm not quite sure
Loose
what's happening
balls.
there.
So remember,
Loose-
I said that it's not snow. There was areas people thought they got snow. I learned this. If it's, well, I'm not going to say that part, but the National Weather Service of Sacramento says they've received reports of frozen precipitation making it to the ground in Sacramento Metro this afternoon with temperatures in the low 50s. This is a graupel, Graupel, and or hail mixture, but not snow. So if you think you saw some snow, could be some snow, but it could also very well be graupel. So I learned
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah,
so
man.
grapple. That sounds wild. So when I was on my way up, I was driving through Auburn. It's supposed to be 38 degrees to snow, and it was snowing, and it was 41 degrees. So it could have been some sort of grapple, but it was like a grapple out. So it was like you couldn't see very far in front of you. There was a lot of
grapple
grapple. There was a lot of grapple. One thing we don't have to worry about is Brenden driving in the grapple because Brenden still doesn't have his car back.
What?
So maybe an Uber driver has to get you through the grapple.
Oh, you're on mute. Did you get in another wreck?
You did get
Damn,
it's the
wrong, man.
same wreck.
No, I've just, probably taken way too long on my end to initially start the process because of complications. And then my insurance claim representative is a pain in the butt to get a hold of. So,
Oh, hope they don't watch this podcast.
yeah, I hope
That's
they
not
do.
great. Yeah. Well, I hope they do too. I was driving on Sunrise Avenue today, heading towards Douglas Boulevard, and we're talking about car accidents. Brenden, of course, got in. He got sideswiped. It's been 3 months, Brenden. I mean, it's been-
Longer, but yeah.
It was
longer.
before Thanksgiving. So, and you still haven't got your car back. So, anyway, I was driving and the cars in front of us are stopping, and I looked next to me, and the car next to me is not slowing down. And I'm like, oh, that's not good. And then he jams on his brakes just in time, barely misses hitting the cars in front of him, and the guy on the motorcycle behind him just goes whack, smacks right into the back of his car,
Oh no!
right next to me. I'm like, oh, that's not good. Of course, then the
and
light
you
turns
had to
green.
call a coroner. And
No,
No?
I think people are going 30, so I
keep
think
it
the guy
moving.
was okay. I'm not sure. The guy pulled over. I
You
was
weren't- you just left?
Well, I had to. I was kind of slightly in front of it, but in the lane next to
Dead.
it,
just dead.
so I moved. I circled back to see if I could go back to the accident to make sure everything's
him
okay,
over.
but I couldn't find my way back to where it was, and I'm like, oh well, that's too bad. So, again, the ambulance was. I'm sure the hospitals are right down the street. There's actually
Oh, you're
urgent
sure.
care
James
across
was like,
the street from
there
it.
might be
I'm
a
like,
guy dead over there, but I got shit to do. he's got to go.
Well, I had to
James isn't losing
I had
sleep.
to get on the radio, so yeah, I went up to Douglas, took a right, got on, went down and hung out with D'Lo and Casey. It was pretty traumatic. I was like, huh. I heard the guy next to me is literally locked up and sliding. I'm like, oh, that's not good. And he stops, and then whack. Like the bike is laying down in the street. I couldn't see the guy. I don't know where he was. I'm not sure.
Oh, he
So
died.
I don't think he died.
Okay.
Yeah, but there was a major motorcycle accident on Highway 80 yesterday, which caused
James has all the feel goods today,
which
doesn't he?
did not impact me at all. It did not impact me at all.
This is everyone's favorite part of the Kings Beat podcast.
Yeah, the weird
These
random
intros.
stuff. Yeah, where we meander. Okay, well, let's get to it. First of all, if you're watching here on the YouTube and you don't mind, give us a thumbs up. That helps us with the algorithm.
Just once. You don't have to. You don't have to love us. Just
Sean
like
is
us.
just making a mess of this by telling people to give more than one thumbs up. Let's see. Outside of that, subscribe. That would help us. If you want to jump on board and sponsor the Kings Beat podcast, there's actually a little box down below in the description of the YouTube channel. You can help out there. Outside of that, jump on board with the Kings Beat. We're growing like crazy in the last couple of days. I'm not sure what's going on, but it's fine with me. Become a premium subscriber, and that gets you invitations to the happy hour and everything else. And typically I save like somber and crappy things for the end of the show. But since we've already talked about the strange motorcycle accident and everything else, I do want to take a moment. Greg Van Dusen passed away yesterday. For those of you who don't know who Greg Van Dusen is, he was a major player with the Kings from 1985 until the mid to late 90s. He's a guy who was an executive for the Kings for a long time. If you've ever watched Small Market Big Heart, I interviewed Greg Van Dusen outside of Arco 1 for the documentary, and you can actually see him in the documentary. It's pretty cool. Tobin, our director, was able to cut in video of Greg describing the night that Arco started leaking, and Greg, Luke, and Bill went into the rafters to capture the water. But while that's happening, you can see Greg Van Dusen wearing like a striped shirt describing this situation. And then we pan to a scene where Greg Van Dusen is wearing almost the identical shirt on the floor, mopping up water that's on the court falling from the sky. He was a really good dude, a really, really good storyteller. And so thoughts and prayers out to Greg Van Dusen's family. He passed away today at the age of 72. According to Joe Davidson and the Bee, it was liver and kidney failure. But again, these things happen. He was one of the great storytellers around Sacramento. He was the one who fielded the phone call when the police called and told the Kings that Ricky Berry had committed suicide. And he was the one that had to go in and tell Bill Russell, who just happened to be sitting with Ricky Berry's parents that day, discussing some stuff in his office, and had to pull Bill Russell aside and tell him what was happening. Bill Russell, of course, lifted him off the ground by his collar and told him that if he was lying, he was going to kill him, and maybe dropped an F-bomb or two, and then had to go back in the room and explain to Ricky Berry's parents what was happening outside, and that the media were on their way to Arco Arena. So Greg was a big part of everything, and he's also someone who tried to help save the Kings in the first relocation attempt in 2010/11. He's the one that tried to get a group together and buy the Kings and build a new arena at the former Arco site. And anyway, very, very nice man. Great storyteller. He will be missed greatly. So again, thoughts and prayers to Greg's family. Sean, you knew Greg Van Dusen, right?
Yeah, I mean, at arm's length, I guess. I didn't know him as well as you did. Just had a few brief conversations with him over the years, and was always knew his impact in the community. Very nice man, and very outgoing. Always willing to do anything for the Kings. I mean, he there's teams, there's people that bleed purple, and He'd had his ups and downs with the organization, and he still bled purple. So just a big, huge thread in that Kings organization for sure.
Yeah, definitely. One of those guys that if you were around, watching and being, a fan of the team and from like 85 until like mid to late 90s, you probably had seen him, or like maybe you even knew him. He was a big member in the community. So he had 3 sons. He has 3 sons that are out there. And it just, again, thoughts and prayers. Good dude. Sorry to hear of his passing. Outside of that, Sean got a firsthand glimpse at All-Star Weekend. Brenden and I decided to forego the fantasy suite and stayed home. Sean, has there ever been a worse All-Star Weekend? I don't know. Like, from everything from start to finish, it just felt like what are we doing here?
Do you mean from a Kings standpoint? Do you mean from obviously the game was just awful. But I will say that, like, I still feel that the league is in very good hands. I just think something needs to be done with the All-Star game, and kudos to the league for trying different methods to get it to be competitive again. And we've seen this method work before. It didn't work this time because the other team, Team Giannis, built such a huge lead. And when you bring in the 24 points out of respect for Kobe Bryant, it didn't really make things any more competitive this year. So it's unfortunate. Injuries certainly played a factor. You certainly see the great young talent within the league. I will say, I think, there's some people who've debated the dunk contest. Mac McClung was obviously probably one of the biggest bright spots of the weekend. I wasn't a fan of it being in Salt Lake City for a multitude of reasons, selfishly, but I'm just done with going to cold weather places. And I'm not trying to say oh, woe is me. That's first world problems for sure. But I haven't been to All-Star game in a long time, but they've had a number of these cold weather cities, and you think of what an All-Star game does for a city. I mean, you're talking about almost $1 billion that comes through, and certainly hasn't been in Salt Lake City for a long time. I get it, but might be a good way to try to mix in some warm weather with some cold weather, and I think you might get a little bit more some participation from your legends, your people in the NBA family, celebrities, people who come in and spend a lot of money in those areas. So to see it back in Salt Lake City was a good thing for them, for sure. I know Charles Barkley voiced a lot of things, though he was not alone in doing that. But I will say, as Jay Hardaway, I think, just said in the comment, man, Salt Lake, it had the second oldest building in the league. It had been renovated, and it has 4 elevators. Not even like freight elevators. I mean, it was kind of a mess. So that and the way Salt Lake City handled it gave me entire confidence that with a cruise ship coming up the river in Sacramento, as was proposed before they lost out to Sacramento, when Sacramento lost out to Salt Lake City for this All-Star game, that both the NBA, the Kings organization, the city, they all believe that can help the lack of 5-star hotel rooms in the area. You have a lot of hotels throughout the Sacramento region, which also helps. De'Aaron Fox made a mention of how he was staying 40 minutes away from the city. It takes 40 minutes away from the city. The team, a lot of where the players stayed was very close to the arena, but a lot of other players had to stay farther away if they're bringing in family. So it gave me confidence that Sacramento could not only pull it off, but pull it off with shining colors. And it all starts with Golden One Center. I think the region can handle it, and I hope it happens in the very, very near future. I think, it's going to go to Indianapolis next year. I know Milwaukee's thrown their hat in the ring. I know LA has too, and by virtue of another cold weather city in Indianapolis getting it next year, I think LA is a shoo-in for it. And, hopefully Sacramento is not on the too distant future.
Okay, number one, people say they saw you get dapped up by Shaq. Did that happen? True or false?
Uh,
Fact or cap? There we
I
go.
I want to say Cap, and I did have an interaction with Shaq, but I don't think I got dapped up by him.
Can you
hug
share
it
your
out.
interaction?
Just in passing. It was just, it was a very brief exchange. I will say I had a very, it was also awkward being in Salt Lake where someone like Karl Malone and his transgressions from the past came to surface again. And there's a lot of people, including myself, that had not necessarily forgotten, but maybe forgotten a few details of that situation. And it definitely was a distraction there. But from a basketball standpoint, Karl Malone being on that stage with just, if you take all that aside, Karl Malone, LeBron James, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, for the three faces of the scoring history, the most points scored in NBA history, was a special moment, but I don't know that it was worth it.
Oh no, I don't think it was worth it at all for the NBA. No. I mean, unfortunately, the two. Okay, we could go back to like Pete Maravich, right? But outside of that, like the stars of Utah are Stockton and Malone. Jerry Sloan, of course, has passed, and even Mark Eaton is gone. He passed away last year, if I'm not mistaken. So, like having like your two major representatives, one who impregnated a 12 or 13-year-old when he was in his 20s, and one who is like the biggest conspiracy theorist nut that there is, like that's not great. Like I don't know how. I mean, the NBA was put in a bad situation, and to be honest, they made it much worse by letting those guys be still a part of it. It seems like they could have been able to find somebody that represented the community better and what could be a face of the event, like a Jeff Hornacek or someone. I don't know. But it didn't seem like there was a simple solution. And even saying that, I still don't think it went over well. Brenden, what were your thoughts? Like, you watched every event, I'm sure, because you're a basketball junkie.
Yeah, I mean, from Sacramento's perspective, it was a pretty uneventful All-Star weekend. I mean, I think the All-Star game was to be expected. Sabonis only put up 2 points in his first two All-Star games, so I guess 6 is an improvement. But De'Aaron's only field goal attempt was a missed dunk, which was kind of funny. But nothing too unexpected there when it came to that. I think for me, it was the 3-point contest a little bit where it was like, yeah, Kevin probably could have done better than 8 points. Wasn't the greatest showing, and I'm sure he wishes he could have that back. I will say, and I've heard people mention this plenty of times, but just to echo it, that like that motion of reaching down and then going into your shooting form is not natural for guys. So I'm making excuses for Herter out here.
You are. Yeah, you are.
But no, I mean, I thought that was somewhat of a letdown, but not anything where I'm like feeling any differently about Herter than I did prior to the weekend, obviously. And then Keegan.
Hold on, can I stop you there real quick?
Yeah.
Kudos to Herter, man. I mean, he owned it. Like, we did some research, and I think this is true. I want to make sure that, I couldn't get it completely. But in our own research I think he went 5 of 25, or excuse me, 5 of 27. The only one statistically worse than that was Michael Jordan when he went 5 of 25. They added 2 shots and Kevin missed them both. So to Kevin's credit, he absolutely owned it. It was weird, guys. Like, you're walking in that mix zone. Everyone wants to talk to. I already forgot who won.
Dame
Lillard. Thank you. Everyone wants to talk to him. Maybe a few others, but I'm around Kevin, and it's me and just a few other people, and we're peppering him with. It felt like he was sitting there talking about a game that he lost, like that the Kings had lost. That's what it felt like. He wanted to be there, as Stephen Brown points out in our chat here. He absolutely wanted to be there. He wants a shot at redemption, as Reggie Miller said. Also, as somebody had pointed out, he said he probably won't be invited back. I don't think that'll be the case. I think he will. As long as he continues to shoot around 40% like he is currently still doing, I believe. Brennan probably know better than I do at the moment, but he was at 42% for a great portion of the season. It may have dipped below that, but
39.
I asked him too, because the internet was not kind to him, as it is predictably so and should be. But to see him handle it the way I asked him, I was like, I'm not trying to be a dick. No, actually, I said, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but are you going to look at the internet tonight? And he's like, yeah, and he had fun with it. He went to Twitter and he put a thing out there. I thought he really handled it the right way because that was brutal, bro. It was really brutal.
And Sean, you said at practice yesterday, someone was giving him a hard time in the group chat, right, with the players?
Monk. Well, I don't know if it's a hard time. I would imagine, being that the character we know of Malik Monk, he certainly probably had some things to say. De'Aaron Fox tipped us off to that, but I still don't know what was said, so I'm going to try and find that out. But I'm sure Kevin will tell us.
I felt bad for him because, like, in all honesty, he hasn't looked right for about a month, maybe a little bit over that. And so for him to go out there and have a bad shooting night like that in front of so many people, and his family was there, I mean, that's just not fun. And it wasn't like he was off by much. He was barely off, and if you're barely off, it shows you what happens. Yeah, I felt for him. But, I thought Fox handled the All-Star game really well too. Like, he didn't really want to get hurt, and he didn't really care. He looked and he's like, what is happening here? This is garbage, and I don't want to be a big part of this. This is horrible basketball. So
he told us the day before that he didn't anticipate doing much. I didn't anticipate, quote unquote, doing much. Sorry, guys, to coincide with him scoring 0 points. But yeah, he first All-Star experience. I think he's appreciative of the moment. I think he would have been. This is my own read here. I think he would have been a little bit more juiced for it if he had been voted in initially as the reserve by a coach and not as an injury replacement, because you got your kid that he just had. He's obviously pretty banged up and could use the rest, but he's got his eyes on the prize, which is making this playoff drought go away, and I commend him for that. I think he still could have had a little bit more fun in the moment, but is what it is. Hopefully he'll be back there in the right way next year.
Well, and can we talk about that a little bit? Like, we talked to Keegan about it a bit today, that the guys that participated in this weekend, like, we view it as an all-star break, but they didn't get much of a break, right?
No, they don't. I will say, for the many things that they have in Salt Lake, appearances and these practices and things, Fox and Sabonis both were like, nah, man, I'm chilling. Like, I think they took advantage of the downtime that was there, which surprisingly was rather manageable for both of them. I think they, Domas got to go sledding with a kid and with Tiger, and enjoy Salt Lake as much as they can with the outdoors. And I think De'Aaron and his wife with their kid and with family in town was basically able to lay low for the most part and kind of stay out of things. He showed up when he had to, and those were some just practice and availability, but he wasn't there on All-Star Saturday night. Domas did show up to support on Friday to support Keegan, but once Saturday night rolled around, everyone was with their family. So I think they found enough downtime. I think they both said they're like, nah, we're not doing a whole lot. So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I'd also point out, too, Keegan, because he's part of the rookie-sophomore game, like, they put those guys through the ringer. Like, he didn't have any downtime. He told us today the only time that he went to his hotel room was to sleep, and that it was go, go, go from one event to the next. I saw, they were stuffing backpacks to give to underprivileged kids and to homeless people. They were doing meal boxes. There's a lot of things that go into, especially for the younger guys, being part of sort of the community outreach stuff. And so I thought that was Keegan's adventure was much different than Fox's. We also, Sean, you weren't there today at practice because you're in Tempe, Arizona for spring training. But Keegan, I think more than anyone there, he needed a mental break and to get away. And he's been very coy because I've asked him a couple of times about his brother. I think people they underestimate how close him and his brother. I mean, first of all, they're twins. They're identical twins. they've been together like almost every day their entire lives. They've spent like one other time he said they had been away from each other for 7 days. It had been 7 months since he'd seen his brother in person, and he flew back to see his brother. And I think he caught one of his sister's games as well, and then raced back to Sacramento. But Brenden, did you see that with him? Like, it sure did seem like he got what he needed from the break.
I think seeing family is kind of what stood out in that conversation today, as you just pointed out. And I think that you're able to pick up throughout the course of this year just kind of the importance of family, at least seemingly so, that Keegan gives off. So I'm sure seeing that is great. I mean, that difference of going a week at most of not seeing your brother, and then all of a sudden he said he hadn't seen him since August, like that's got to be a pretty big adjustment for Keegan. And I think that the adjusting to the NBA, I think people can overlook how much that has to do with off the court as it has to do with on. And I think that off the court has stood out to me a lot for Keegan from what we can tell. So I would imagine that reset was nice for him, even if he was kind of moving nonstop.
Yeah, I think it's a big reset for everybody. Like it is like this has been a pressure-filled season for the Sacramento Kings. Something that a lot of these guys haven't been either through ever or in the last couple of years in Sacramento. If you're looking at a guy like Harrison Barnes, even a guy like Malik Monk hasn't really been in a playoff hunt. Kevin Huerter's the one guy who kind of has been, but even that is, hit and miss when it came to Atlanta. Like there is so much pressure that's been building because, every time we write about it, it's, 16-year playoff drought. These guys know what they're up against. They know like what it's, even though they haven't had success in the second half of the season in the last 16 years, that doesn't mean they haven't been in games and understood like it's a different game after the All-Star break. And like we could discuss that all we want, but like I've covered this team forever. There's a moment when the switch usually hits and the good teams become really good and the bad teams become really bad, and then there's these teams that are fighting. And the Kings just really haven't been legitimately in a dogfight like this, like they're going to be. And I think this moment here where, number one, they had some representation and were able to like show that they belong and that they had two All-Stars. They had a rookie sophomore guy. They had a 3-point shootout guy. They had Neemias Queta was probably the best player they had the whole weekend. He probably had the best weekend out of anybody. Like lighting it up for the G League, what's it called, the next game or whatever.
Something like that.
Yeah, I mean he had, I think, 20 points, and he had a good showing. But overall, I think this is like it's perfect timing. And there's also something else that we talked to the guys about, and I think Keegan said it. He said the 3 games before the break, which was Dallas twice and Phoenix, they really felt that what they're going to face in the final 25 games. They felt like that pressure, what it is to be in a playoff contention, a highly contested game. And I think that was good too, because you got a taste of it and then you got like a week to sort of process what you're going to see. And that's something that like I think a lot of these guys needed.
Yeah, and going back to Queta for a moment, it's fun to see all those guys from the G League have a moment like that. Scoot Henderson, who's going to be a big name in this league coming up in the next few years, put on an absolute show. But Queta was there, and it was we talk about how big of a following Portugal is for their beloved big man who was back in Utah in a state that he played pretty well in college for and got to really fine-tune his game and really get to know some of the nuances. But when you think of Portugal basketball, the other name you think of is Tisha Penicheiro, the WNBA legend, who is essentially like the John Stockton, right behind Sue Bird, really, but one of the all-time assist leaders in the WNBA and Monarchs legend. She's now a basketball agent. She represents a lot of both overseas players and WNBA players as well, both men and women. And she was at that game and got to meet Queta for the first time ever in person. and kind of a fun moment to watch. We ran the story. I haven't been able to put it online just because I've been traveling all over the place, but it was really fun to talk to both of them about their admiration of one another, and how Tisha says, I've talked to him over the phone, on the internet, and things like that, and I feel like he's a big brother in a way, or a little brother in a way, and just kind of cool to see their relationship as two people who are like ambassadors of basketball for Portugal.
Yeah. But Brenden, what did you make of, like, I mean, again, like Keita, like we have no idea what Keita is going to be. And it was fun to watch him like have success in the G League game. But like when you get back, it really does seem like it's more of like what's next for this group, and like sort of the pressure that's going to be building. And the finish line that they see that's out there that is kind of like an unknown for this group. But did you feel that at all with the interviews over the last couple of days?
I mean, they have a lot riding on this next stretch. Coach Brown talked about how, you're not going to be dealing with load management the same way before. Like, teams are going to be locking in. They play the Clippers on a second night of a back-to-back on Friday night. You will probably see a close to full strength Clippers squad, which I don't know that the Kings have seen that this year. Maybe once Kawhi was just coming back from injury, though, if I'm remembering that right. So there's that. There's Coach Brown has talked about being the hunted now, which is the reality of where Sacramento's at the 3 seed. Sure, you're only 3 games behind the 2nd seed, but you could look at it the other way too, that you're 3 games out of the play-in. And it's just a really delicate spot that Sacramento is currently in. Coach Brown has said a lot about the lack of experience that this team has in high pressure games as a group. And I think this is going to be an opportunity to learn a lot about this team moving forward. And they kind of had been struggling heading into this. Not now. I don't know if that's fair to say. It's more so that the offense had been struggling more than I expected. And I worry when the offense is struggling, because I don't know that I feel great about the defense of this team, or if anyone really does. But going to need to make sure to lock in. And I know every game matters throughout the course of the entire season, but these final 25 especially, it just feels even more so.
Yeah, I was so first of all, the Kings have, like, this last 25 games is tough. And like, if you really break it down, like, they have a lot of games where like they don't have a lot of cupcake games. And they do have a lot of games against the teams that they're going to be competing with, and then a handful of games against teams that are like really good. Like, they still have the Celtics, they still have the Bucks, on the schedule. They have a couple of games against the Suns. Like, they have tough games, but for me, like, going the strengths of schedule, what's left in the final 25 is the Kings they have the 4th most difficult schedule at a .520 win percentage against. And on top of that, they have the 2nd most difficult in the Western Conference. Only the Clippers have a more difficult schedule than they do. Some teams like Dallas has the easiest schedule in the league. And it brought me to a point too that, like, this is one of those reasons why I continuously try to frame this season as like, look, they're doing really well and they have an opportunity, and I do believe they will snap the playoff drought. But at the same time, number one, they've been really, really healthy. Like, this team, for some reason, is like, kudos to the medical staff who is new this year, but for keeping this team healthy. But secondly, because the Kings have like the most difficult schedule ahead of them, it also means that they've gone through the easy part of their schedule. And so through 57 games, the Kings have a .488 win percentage against, and that is the easiest schedule in the NBA. So to date, and I'm not trying to take anything away, what I'm saying is that those games that you just look at on the schedule and you circle and you say, okay, that's a win, that's a win, that's a win, that's a win, they're almost out of those. Like, there aren't many left. Like, they have a game against the Spurs. They have a game against the Bulls, who are 7 games under 500. They have a couple of games against Portland, who is a couple of games under 500. They have, Minnesota, but Minnesota's probably tougher than their record. They've got OKC, who is like a game or 2 under 500, but again, teams that are around them in sort of development stage, right? If you look at, like, again, Minnesota, New Orleans, OKC, like even Portland, you can kind of throw in that group. They have a lot of games against those teams and then games against tough teams. Like, I don't know how the season's going to finish. And it's why I try to, like, never too high, never too low mentality. And I try not to be too depressing, but I also want to be realistic with people, right? And it's something that, Sean, you've talked about a bunch of times.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I like to break up the schedule in little increments throughout the season. And you know, your narrative doesn't really change, but your story can. You know, I don't think anyone anticipated the Kings being where they are right now, being third in the West. And it's a good thing, because they not only were there, but they've been able to hold that for over a month. And I think to the 25 games left, I mean, there's a nice breakdown. Is if you look at the remaining games, you got 12 at home, 13 on the road. 25 games, though, is tied for the most games remaining in this after the All-Star break. You have 6 back-to-backs, and that's also tied for the most with Oklahoma City going forward here in the West. And then of your opponents, James, you were talking about, 14 of them are 500 or better. 14 opponents tied for the most in the West, alongside Portland and Golden State. So which means the Kings, the Blazers, and the Warriors will face 14 of their remaining games against opponents with 500 records or better. That's, you know, it's going to be tough. And regardless, I still feel pretty good about this team not falling below sixth place in the standings, because I think there's just so much work that other teams have to do, even though everyone's really kind of clumped together. So I still feel pretty good about it. But this is kind of fortunately, they've taken advantage of the schedule. They've handled their business. They did what they were, was supposed to do, and then some. And we've talked about the equity they built, and here you are. So I was telling people, I think I mentioned in the last podcast, that I'd be okay if they finish 500 the rest of the way. That would be, I think if you're a Kings fan, you'd be ecstatic with that. And I think a lot of people in the organization would as well.
Absolutely. I mean, 56.1 win percentage is where they're at right now. If they just continued at that rate, they'd end 46-36. And if you just take that win percentage in years prior, it's actually never been better than tied for 7th in the last 5 years. But the parity this season is way different than what we've seen in years prior. We've heard the coaching staff and players talk about that tirelessly. And like there is an aspect of luck at the beginning of this season, the injuries, the strength of schedule, but one of my favorite quotes is, luck is when opportunity meets preparation, and they were prepared to take advantage of those opportunities. And
cite your source. Who said that?
My father.
Oh, your father's a great man.
Yeah.
Yeah, but where did he get that quote? Because that sort of sounded like John Wooden.
He'll never tell me. As far as he's concerned, it's from him.
That's what Google's for. We're going to destroy...
Brenden has no idea who John Wooden is, by the way.
Brennan's like, damn it, I thought my dad was a
UCLA?
Legend. Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Good job,
there
buddy.
you go. Yeah, like people are making predictions, and you guys it's fair for you guys to make predictions. I don't have a prediction. Like, I look at the schedule, and we just, like, every single game is an individual game. Like, and that's how the team should look at it. You start out with Portland at home. That's only the 3rd game at home in the month of February, which is wild. And then, they go right out on the road. They play it back-to-back against the Clippers on Friday. They have 3 games in 4 nights with the OKC Thunder on Sunday. Then they go back and play the Thunder again. I would say, like, if these 3 games you can make some major impact and, like, go 3-4, then I would be a lot more confident in what I'm seeing and where I think this team can go. It's just really difficult to know, like, what team you're going to get and the team that shows up every night to play against you. You don't really have an idea what that is. And there are teams like OKC who could at this point go, yeah, we're good, and go play for Victor Wembanyama. But I also think that they're a little too close to the playoff picture for them to give up at this point. So they might keep going. I think Utah fits in that same category. You play Utah coming up, and like, is that Utah team going to be done at that point, or are they going to be in it? And then even you get to like the last 3 games of the season, and like at first look, like 2 months ago or at the beginning of the season, you thought, okay, you got at Dallas, against the Warriors at home, and then at Denver. And you think, okay, it's possible that, of course, all 3 of those teams already have their place situated in the playoffs, and you might not face their full strength. I don't think that's the case. I think Dallas and the Kings are going to be really close the whole way. I think Golden State is going to be fighting, trying to get, as high as they can, so, to improve their seeding. And then we get to the final game of the season, and I don't know, it kind of brings it to Michael Malone at the All-Star game, who, again, thanked his ownership group and then talked about how it's just really great to have owners that didn't walk in the first year you were there and talk about playing 4-on-5. He's still taking jabs at the Kings. And if you're talking about the final game of the season and Michael Malone has an opportunity to put the Kings at either the 6th seed or the 7th seed and to knock them down a peg, I have a hard time believing that Michael Malone's not going to go for the jugular, because that's who Michael Malone is.
And as he should. I mean, as anyone should, but might feel a little bit better for sure.
Yeah. So, like, look, this is going to be a crazy finish. That's how I look at it. Like, I can't make any prediction. And you know why? Because, like, I've covered a 39-win team. And happy birthday, Dave Yeager. His birthday was yesterday. Turned 49 years old. Happy birthday, Coach. 39 wins under Yeager. The next best season I've covered in 13 years is 33 wins under George Karl. The Kings are 1 win away from that. So anything after that, I almost have no idea what's happening. Like, what do you mean there's still 24 games left and you got 33 wins? I don't know what that feels like.
You're just going to look around in amazement and just like, wow, this is really neat.
I'll say, pinch me, Sean. Is this real?
No, I won't be doing that.
I don't know. You're going to sit right next to me. We share an ice cream on occasion, Sean. I don't know.
We did that one time. Yeah, I remember that.
Or twice.
One time.
What? We shared with you, Brenden.
I shared one time.
We shared with you.
It's true.
Like Lady in the Tramp style.
Awesome. I want to get to something too. We were at practice today, and going into practice, actually Brenden brought it up and said, should we ask Mike Brown about the Jordi Fernandez rumors? Like, if you guys have been paying attention out there, the Atlanta Hawks decided to fire Nate McMillan in the middle of the season. Jordi Fernandez, the Kings associate head coach, longtime friend of Mike Brown, who basically discovered him and got him into the league. So anyway, Jordi is one of the people who the Hawks would love to talk to. And like, I knew that a month ago when the Hawks rolled into town. There was a buzz about it the whole time then, that Jordi was on their short list of coaches moving forward. And things weren't going well then. So we talked to Mike Brown about it today. And again, this was at the urging of Brenden. We got to the end of Mike Brown, and media relations was like, last question. And so I threw it at Mike Brown because I knew we wanted to get to it. So I'm going to play that video right now so you guys can actually hear what Mike had to say, because I thought it was, this speaks volumes about who Mike is, but it's a really good clip. So Brenden and Sean and I will be back in just a sec, but here's Mike Brown. Mike, we saw you out here talking to Jordi, and his name's been mentioned with the Atlanta job. Just, I guess, how good does that feel to have like one of your guys that you discovered, but also like, how do you keep it from being a distraction, and where's your sort of process on what you would allow him to do or conversations you'd allow him to have?
I being in the position that I'm in, yes, I'm here coaching this team and trying to help these guys win at a high level. But at the end of the day, everybody wants to have some sort of individual success in life. And I truly believe that can fit into any team environment as long as you have good people handling it the right way. And it's no different from a player to a coach. You know, a player like Davion, you know, he eventually wants to probably start someday and be an all-star someday, but he understands what we need from him right now in his role to help him get there and help us get there. It's no different for Jordi. Jordi is a fantastic human being. He's a fantastic coach. He will be a head coach in this league someday. He's ready for it right now. And I look at it more as an honor, not just because of what he's doing, but because of what the people around him are doing, from the rest of the staff and the rest of the players. And it's my job to try to help uplift or propel guys to a better place than what they were when they first got here. And if it's meant to be for Atlanta or anybody else to take him away as their head coach, I wouldn't be more happier, because he's definitely deserving of a head coaching opportunity sooner than later.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Yeah, Brenden, what were your thoughts?
That Coach is an amazing person, and it was kind of an as expected answer, but still great to hear. Selfishly, if the Kings lost Jordi in the middle of the season, I think that would worry me a bit, but who knows? It would be a unique experience to witness for myself. I mean, I think that it's great that Coach is elevating not only his players, but his staff. And even prior to this coming out, I want to say a month or so ago, he was on the stand, either post game, something like that, talking about how great Jordi is and that eventually he'll be a head coach in this league. Like, this isn't the first time we've heard Mike Brown have this high praise of Jordi, and specifically the relationship that Jordi and Coach Brown have, with Coach being the one that brought him over to Cleveland in 2009, and then him kind of sticking there for a little while before he went to Denver, and then now obviously joining him in Sacramento. But I think that it's great to hear Coach be so just open about how much he is trying to elevate everyone, and the individual goals that everyone has can be accomplished in the process of accomplishing something as a team.
Sean?
No, I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, look, it's a badge of honor to have one of your assistant coaches go on to be a head coach. And I'm not saying that that makes the comments disingenuous or, you know, or anything like that. Like, no, Mike Brown is 100% right. It's a well-said statement that he made. Michael Malone says the same thing when asked about it this weekend, even about Jordi. And when he came through, when Denver had the back-to-back here in Sacramento, it's the rite of passage. It's what you do. It's what happened to both of those guys before, you know, Mike Brown under Greg Popovich. Michael Malone's father, Brenden Malone, was a longtime head coach in this league, a longtime assistant as well. And Michael Malone has been on staffs with Mike Brown. He's been all over the place. So it's the lineage of coaches. There's a reason there's such a family. It's a brethren with basketball coaches, and it extends beyond just the NBA. It could be, you know, European game. It can be college. It can be high school. It can be AAU, and even in the WNBA, you see so many different connections along the way. So that is exactly what you're supposed to do, and you champion him going in to get that opportunity, because it is about development, you know, at all stages in this league, both players, front office, coaching staffs, PR departments, media. I mean, there's all these different stepping stones. There's so many different career pathways within this league that are just beyond the obvious. And anytime someone moves up, that's what you do. You celebrate those accomplishments.
Yeah, I think it would be great for Jordi. I think that this coaching staff in particular is so different than any coaching staff that I've seen in Sacramento. Like, again, we've talked about this a little bit. Like, you know, Paul Westphal had like some guys that he knew from back in the day. He had some guys that were up and coming, you know, and then you get to, you know, again, Michael Malone had a bunch of guys that he had known from previous stops. George Karl had more of what I've always called like George disciples, guys who had been with him like in Denver and in other stops, like guys who really believed in George Karl. Dave Yeager had like this group of dudes that like all hung out together and had competed against each other at like at lower like CBA level. Like I think it was him and Dwayne Tickner had once like traded a player for a steak dinner. So like that's like they all had like this weird camaraderie. And then we got to Luke Walton, and I felt bad for Luke from the beginning because of this. Like there was a disconnect with his coaching staff, and a lot of it was because Luke had been given a really, really hard time in LA about bringing in a bunch of his friends to be coaches alongside him. He got to Sacramento and he brought in Jesse Mermes, who was one of his friends. He also tried to bring in Brian Shaw, and they didn't let him do that. But then it was like this revolving door of people who had no connection to him, and you felt it the whole time. There was an awkwardness. No one knew what their place was. No one felt comfortable talking to the media because they didn't want to talk out of turn. They didn't want to say something that was inappropriate and get in trouble. Like there was just this weirdness to it. And then we get to this season, and it is really the strangest thing I've ever seen. Like there are babies everywhere. There are little children everywhere. And like this coaching staff, all of them have little ones, and they're all around the same age. And so I like to say the support staff in Sacramento has a support staff, which is each other. And there's a daycare in Sacramento that has 13 small children, or a preschool in Sacramento has 13 small children that all are part of the Kings coaching / front office family. That's what we're like. It's totally different. And you feel that the whole time. Like, again, it's one thing, like these guys go on a 15-day road trip, right? A 7-game road trip, but it's over 15 days. Like their significant others take care of so much stuff while they're gone. And the fact that they have other people who are in similar situations is a really good thing for like building a family atmosphere. And I think more than any other season, that's what I feel like in Sacramento. This feels like a family. And so if Jordi gets the call to the bigs, like this team will embrace him and his family, and like all of them will be cheering him on his way out the door. That's at least what I could tell from this group.
What do you guys think the likelihood is, roughly? Like, just to go through the other candidates that Shams tweeted out, it's Quinn Snyder, Charles Lee, who was a candidate for the Kings opening in the first place, Jordi, Kenny Atkinson, and then Mitch Johnson and Miles. I think it's Simone. I should know that.
Miles Simons.
Come on, man. That's Miles Simon. Miles Simon was Mike Bibby's backcourt mate in Arizona, my guy.
That's right.
Anyway, if I'm betting man, I'm going Quinn Snyder. I think Quinn Snyder lands a job. I think Quinn Snyder has a number of ties to the new regime that's in there. And I could see maybe a couple of those names possibly teaming up. I don't think it'll be Jordi. I'd be thrilled to be wrong, because I think it'd be a great opportunity for him. And yeah, I would selfishly suck on this end of things because he's been, he's been such a breath of fresh air for this team. But at the same time, life goes on. You find another great coach, and you come in and you see the impact that that person can have as well. So I do think Quinn Snyder. I thought Quinn Snyder would be already coaching again in this league. I think it's his call that he hasn't, but. Yeah, man, that'd be my guess.
Yeah, I'm going to say if Quinn Snyder wants a job, that it's probably his to lose. After that, I think Jordy's really, really high on the list, just from like the vibe I got over the last like month and a half with what's going on there, and they think very highly of him. There has been murmurs about him and the Hawks for a while, like even if it's his off season. I don't think anyone expected Nate McMillan to get fired like right in the middle of the season like this. Well, maybe they did. I don't know.
Earlier.
Yeah.
I thought it was heading that way in December. I didn't think we'd get to February, but here we are.
Yeah, I think a better question is, does Jordi want that job? Because that seems like a mess.
It's a head coaching job. Absolutely. He wants that job.
You do. You take the job.
And I must apologize. I'm sitting in a very unfortunate audible chair. So there's some noises coming from this chair right now, and I don't know if they'll.
I don't think it's picked up.
The internet. Oh, okay, good. Well, I'm telling on myself then, because this thing. I keep going. My goodness, what is with this chair? It's terrible.
Yeah,
sorry.
I want to go back to a statement from our friend Jim Graves. Luck is a preparation meets opportunity from Seneca.
Oh, that's my
Roman
dad's
philosopher?
name, actually.
Oh,
It's Seneca,
I know a
the
Seneca.
Roman
Yeah.
philosopher.
Yeah.
Seneca
Nunes.
Wallace, the
Seneca
former
Wallace?
Seahawks quarterback who's from Rancho Cordova. Cordova?
Yeah, Cordova.
No?
Yeah.
Seneca Wallace.
No,
That's the only other Seneca I know.
I don't think it is that Seneca. Yeah. Okay, so if you're still watching here, make sure to give us a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. That would be awesome. We're at like 144 people in here right now, give or take a few. So thumbs ups are
Oh,
good.
excuse me. Yes. Unless you've
yeah.
already done it, then don't do it. We learn.
Don't listen to Sean. Just keep hitting thumbs up until like you're blue in the face. Like,
odd
we have
numbers.
no idea what had happened. Whatever is happening there, just keep doing what you're doing. Let's see. Bryce, I don't know what you're saying there. If you guys have questions for us, go ahead and start loading them up here in the comment section, since we are doing a live show on the YouTube. Outside of that, Brenden, do you have any factor cap for us?
I do not.
Ooh.
Did you watch any movies over the break, Brendan?
Not.
Oh my God.
Think about it. I did not.
Did not do his homework assignment.
No.
Sean,
I
what
will
have you
throw
been
one.
watching?
Mayor of Kingstown, kind of
Okay, yep.
going through season 2 of that. I wanted to wait for a few of them to build up, but
From the
kinda-
Human Pancake, Jeremy Renner.
Jeremy Renner, and I started on Netflix. They've got the people that brought the the Formula One racing. They've done it for the PGA Tour from last year, and it's been really fantastic. And yeah, I may have shed a thug tear running it when Rihanna came on during the Super Bowl, but we talked about that already. That was
He already cried.
that was a ways ago.
I
You
will
already
watch
cried.
Outer Banks when it comes out.
Oh,
Huh.
I randomly binged that a while ago.
Okay.
interesting. I've seen it.
Were you all for doing the Brendan reviews the Oscar nominees?
Oh, yeah. I don't think we're gonna get that to happen.
Darn it.
Like, he doesn't even know where to find most of those movies.
Not wrong. Not wrong.
No lies.
All right, I have come up with 2 factor caps.
Okay, factor caps. Go for it. Fact or cap?
Fact or cap, Kevin Herter will end the season at 40% or higher from 3. And to walk through month by month, in October, he went 25 of 47, 53% from 3. November,
We won't be
39.
doing that again.
No. November, 41%. December, 37%. January, 37%. February, 28%. And he's currently sitting at 39.2 on the year. So factor cap, Kevin Herter will end the year 40% or higher from 3.
What do you got, Sean?
I'm leaning towards fact, actually, because I just don't think it's going to get worse than we've already seen. And I think we know he's capable of doing so much
How
more.
could it get any worse?
Right. I think there comes a... James likes to use that Jaeger expression, the let go of the rope a little bit. I think you tend to get a little bit heavy in the legs around this time. So, yeah, man, I think you've come out of the 3-point shootout, and I don't think it's going to get that bad. So, yeah, I'll side on the 40% or better. That's a fact.
I'm gonna say cap.
I'm going to tell him you said that.
I
Let me
just
write
think
that down. James
like-
says no chance.
like the responsibilities that Kevin is taking on this season are something that he just did not have to do in previous years. And like I think we're seeing the process of him being a 15, 16, 17 point per game scorer, and we're just seeing year 1 of that process. Like, he was stuck at 12 points a game for 3 years, and a 3-point a game increase at the NBA level is really, really substantial. And so I think I'm hoping that he's energized and that he's got a chip on his shoulder after what happened at All-Star Weekend, and that he's ready to roll. But, like, what does that mean? Like, you got 25 games. It's going to be tough. Like, raising your 3-point percentage by 1% isn't easy. I would think he's going to finish 38, 39%. And, like, I hope I'm wrong. I hope he has a better finish. but it's also possible that like the slide that he's in continues. And I was laughing because I did make a human pancake remark about Jeremy Renner, and yeah, I apologize. That wasn't very nice. He did get run over by a giant tractor.
I almost said something, but I was like, well, maybe that has something to do with the Hawkeye Marvel Universe thing that I haven't seen, because I'm kind of got this fatigue when it comes to comic book movies. So I was like, James wouldn't make that.
He like almost turned himself into a permanent snow angel. I mean,
jeez,
like,
James.
like,
God, these are
like, I mean, he
Sir.
ran himself over with like a 16-ton snowplow. I mean, I'm glad he survived. That's absolutely crazy. All right, Factor Cap. What else you got for us?
Okay,
Brendan?
go ahead.
Well, I'll
Wait,
go
Brendan,
I'll
yeah, what
say
are you
Cap.
saying?
Yeah, I'm saying Cap, but
Oh, my bad.
I think that obviously it's close. I think he's just going to hover right around this mark. He's never broken 40 in his career. He's taken 1.2 more triples per game this season. I think 40 is just a tough marker to hit in general. Herder's definitely capable, but if I have to guess, I feel like it's safer to say Cap. For what it's worth, 43.8% at home and 34.4% on the road, which is quite the difference for Herder there. I am barely going Cap, though. The next one I have for you guys is Factor Cap. The Kings will add a buyout player. I don't know if I'm wording that correctly, but they will add somebody in the buyout market. Fact or Cap?
Do you want to go first on this one, or do you want me to?
You go ahead.
If you had asked me before All-Star Weekend, I would have said I could see it happen. I think I did say it. Shit. I mean, we were doing a podcast, and I remember thinking that something like that could happen. We were looking at some of the names, and I just felt like that would be another way to add something and maybe address a need or two on the obviously very, very cheap, just to finish out the season and see what happens. But after coming back from All-Star Weekend and talking to a lot of people and not really hearing much of anything, I'm kind of thinking it's not going to happen. So I forget which way you phrased it, but I will say I don't think it happens.
I'm going to agree with you, Sean. Like,
oh, damn it.
It's quiet out there.
Yeah.
And if you were going to do something like waive Alex Len, okay, so first of all, you have until March 1st, right? If you're going to waive somebody or sign a player, you need to do it before March 1st to make them playoff eligible. So they're running out of days here. I don't even know what the date is. I mean, like, our lives, like, I have no idea what the date is. Where they got like 5 days, Brennan. One of you guys certainly have to have some sort of calendar in front of you somewhere. But if you were going to waive somebody, you probably should have done it during the break, so when people come back, they're just not there. And it's not like that, oh, he's gone, right? So I think that I'm going to kind of side with you. I'm surprised by that, though. Thanks, Bryce. It's the 22nd. We have 8 days left. Yeah. I still think, we're waiting to see if Nerlens Noel gets waived. So I think that I don't know why that name keeps sticking out, but we know that
I don't either. Stop it.
No, the Kings have interest. Like, that's been something that, like, we've heard.
Sure they do. They do.
Okay.
I mean, more interest than they do with Alex Len, right?
Well, I don't know.
That wasn't the conversation.
Yeah, so I'm going to say, like, I really like Will Barton, and I think he could help this team. I don't think they're going to go get him. I think he's going to go to Denver, where he was at for years, or somewhere like that. I think he'll go to a winner, and the Kings should fit into that category, but they don't seem to be, for some reason, ready to make a commitment to someone, and I'm not sure why, because I do think that there is 1 or 2 roster spots that they could easily clear up here and go get somebody that could potentially help this team. Maybe not, maybe so. Who knows?
It's hard to disagree with you guys. Maybe if Dwayne Dedmon didn't sign with Philly, this would be a different conversation. But it's hard to disagree with you guys at this point. There's not all too many names that stand out. I think the standout ones did kind of get picked up, like mentioned Nerlens Noel, Will Barton.
I
Justin
think my
Holiday,
guy's still available, right?
you're right, Stanley Johnson, which I've come
Yeah.
around to.
Oh yeah, how'd that? What did you do?
Well, everybody else got picked up.
He watched a Stanley Johnson mixtape and it convinced him.
Touche, sir.
Stanley Johnson mixtape. Rory asked in the chat here, so what happens to the $2 million in cash they got trading for Kessler Edwards? Someone's out making it rain.
No,
Like-
come on.
Did
Did they get new soda machine? They get new soda machines or something like in Moneyball?
They brought back Derek Williams? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Oh no, the Coke. That's the Coke
That's
machine.
Coke machine. Yeah.
Damn, I'm on a roll here. Yeah. Well, I mean, it could go to pay Monty and Wes's salary. I mean, that's one thing. They did just get extensions and pay increases and stuff like that. Like that doesn't matter. The $2 million. I mean, like their payroll is 133 million. If we're worried about what happened to $2 million they got in a trade, I don't really think that should be something that we're all that concerned with. And part of that has to go to Kessler Edwards, his salary for the season. You're not allowed to pay for somebody's salary when you trade them anymore. The team that takes him on has to pay for it.
Someone said to cover Fox's technicals.
He's
Yeah.
getting up there, isn't he?
He is.
Was he at 11?
Is he higher than where I can look that up? Is he higher than where he was last year?
I think he's already broken the record for how many he's had in a year.
Has to be.
He
I had
hasn't
it-
broken
had
the
it here a
Kings
minute ago.
record. We all know who
No,
owns that
we
one.
know. I don't
And
know. Well,
until you get suspended is 16. He's at the point where I've had to look that up,
No, it's true. I mean, so the technicals are at 10, and that ties his career high, which happened in 2021. He had 6 last year. He's at 10 this year, 37 on his career. He's also been ejected once this year. His career high of ejections was 2 in 21-22. So the more you know.
He's not getting 16 techs. He's not getting suspended. There's no way. So, here's a good question. Well, I mean, you bring it up. Cool, Raul. Could they be holding it for Vezenkov? No. Sasha, there's a window for Sasha to sign with the Kings, and it's already come and gone. And he cannot sign with the team for this season,
Correct.
from what I know. But I think it brings us to the other discussion. The Kings sent Jay Triano out to was it in Greece or was it somewhere else? I hope it was Greece. I hope that Jay Triano got an all
Yeah, it was in Greece. He was in Crete.
Oh, nice. So he got an
Yeah,
all
it's a
expense
good part of
paid
town.
trip to Crete. Good for him.
I think he won the All-Star break, to be honest.
He did, and he actually, I saw him today. He looked very tan. So like he found a good part of the world to go sit in the sun and have a good time. Like, what do you guys think? Because all of a sudden this Sasha chatter is heating up, and he's playing really well in Europe. But I keep watching him and thinking, okay, like.
Oh, James? Huh? Nothing
No,
special?
I
What's
mean,
going
I
on
think
there?
he's interesting, but is he? Yeah, he's in the same sort of talent level that I see Trey Lyles in. Like, I don't think that
No.
there's.
No.
You think he's way better than that?
I do. Yeah.
Interesting.
I think
I don't
he's-
know.
With respect to Mr. Lyles, I think he's a much, much, much more impactful player.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Brendan, have you watched the mixtape of him with Stanley Johnson?
I watched a lot more Eurobasket than what I've watched in his Olympiacos team.
There you
Probably
go.
butchering that.
Nope, you got it. You nailed it.
Olympiacos.
But I think offensively, he's a ridiculously good role player. Like his 3-point shooting is elite. He's got a quick trigger. I think he's able to put the ball on the floor and has these funky, creative finishes with both hands. Kind of not quite fully at the rim, but more so floater range, connecting passes. He's a good rebounder. It may be lazy of me, but he does remind me a little bit of Bielitsa in a way. I think just a really smart offensive player that is underrated at how good his feel and IQ and being a connecting piece is offensively. Defensively, I'd imagine that opposing teams would very much be targeting him, and I don't know that I'd have that much confidence that he'd be able to hold up there. But even if he was just another Trey Lyles, which I would think that maybe he'd be better, but it's hard to tell what game is and isn't going to translate between leagues. But even if he just was another Trey Lyles, like, I don't think this team would mind having another one of those.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but I don't think he's the rebounder. I don't think he's as good defensively. I watch him and I'm like, okay, like if you squint really hard, you can see like a poor man's Bojan Bogdanovic. Like, but is that like a Davis Bertans? And like, I'm not sure. I'm confused. I watched more clips of him, and I'm like,
I'm so
okay.
confused.
Yeah, moonstruck. There you go, Sean.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I just don't really get it. Like, is he a good European player? Yeah, he's a good European player. But like, I don't want to devalue Trey Lyles either, who averaged like 12.5 points a game last season and is playing a role this season. And I think the Kings really, really need long, athletic defenders. It's something that, like, when I did a Q&A with Mike Brown during the break, like, he talked about it. Like, there's only so much you can do. You're limited by like length and athleticism at some point, and the Kings don't have great length at the 3 and the 4, and they even at the 2 they don't have great length, and at the 5 they don't have great length. So like, I think that this team, in order to take the next step and to get better defensively, they're going to actually need to go try to find defensive players, and that's not who Sasha Vezenkov is. And that's not saying he's a bad player. I'm just saying he's not a long athletic defender. And he's going to want at least $4 million. He's going to want the biannual exception, which is at least $4 million, which the Kings were not willing to give him this last offseason. And then he got a pay raise in Europe, and his buyout went up to like $1.5 million or something. And so it's going to become like, can you buy him out? The Kings can only spend, I think this next season, it'll be like $940,000, $960,000 to buy him out, and he'll have to pay the rest. And that means he's got to give like a team like $500,000 to walk away, and then whatever he makes here. So I'm at least intrigued partially, but I don't know.
If I'm a betting man, he is 100% in the Kings uniform next season.
I thought if we were betting men, we thought he was going to be in the Kings uniform this season. And then he decided not to.
Yeah, well, I've been wrong before, but if I'm that's why I'm not a betting man. But
all right.
If I am, I think he'll be a Kings uniform next season.
Yeah, because I mean, even if so let's say you do get him. I mean, he's not Harrison Barnes, and so you're still going to need to replace that. So I mean, are we looking at a third or fourth forward type position? And I mean, he's not as good as Keegan.
Figure it out.
Agree there,
Gotta
right?
Figure it out, right? Yeah. Got to figure it out.
So when are you going to get the shot blocker and the long athletic defender, and where are you going to put him? So I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
No, they need guys that can play both sides of the ball. Like right now, everybody that's at the end of their rotation or at the fringes of their rotation, everybody off their bench actually kind of just plays one side of the ball. The other guys do okay at playing the
except
other side.
Except for Davion. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that getting guys that can do both, I think that's the problem. Like they have a couple wing defenders, at least theoretically on their roster. More so, KZ is, I was going to say proven in that aspect, but like I believe in KZ as a defender. Kessler is more so theoretical. But offensively, they, at least in KZ's case, is a total zero. Like they just need somebody that can not only be that impact defender, but not be ignored on offense. Like I think the spacing of this team has been so essential. And having two non-shooters is just, I don't think that's how this team wants to play. Even if that means you're getting a little bit better defensively, I think it's too big of a sacrifice offensively.
Yeah, I mean, Callum brings up the salient point that Sasha has more Greek League MVPs than Jordan, LeBron, and Tim Duncan combined. He also has more Greek League MVPs than I do. So, like,
fact.
Yeah, fact, not cap. Yeah, Straight up fact.
How many fantasy football rings does he have, though?
Well, I'm gonna guess I have more. I like how Bryce says he is Euro Malik Monk. He's not Euro Malik Monk. That's Rudy Fernandez if he's still playing in Europe. Which last time I checked, Rudy Fernandez is like 37 years old and still playing. Anyway, all right. Do you guys have any more questions? Throw questions at us really quick, and we'll answer them, or we'll at least clown and make fun of some of the questions. That's kind of where we're at this evening.
Sean.
Go ahead, Brenden. Sorry.
I was going to ask you a random question about All-Star Weekend.
Go. No, I'm ready for it.
Your favorite non-Kings related interaction?
I had a strange one with in the same day. I know we'd already talked about the Stockton and Malone thing, but getting off the elevator at my hotel that morning, I stepped off. John Stockton stepped on. It was both of us by ourselves. I was just like, "Oh, hey!" He says, "Good morning," and it was just randomly. And then fast forward to that night at Vivint Arena, getting on the elevator, and Karl Malone is on there. So I was like thinking to myself, I was like, in the same day of All-Star Game, randomly bumping into the two faces of Salt Lake City at this point was kind of neat. I think you said non-Kings, but I think it's probably Mac McClung. I mean, that was pretty incredible. And he finished every dunk, didn't have to have multiple tries. He made it look simple and just effortless, and just super impressive. So I had a lot of other stuff that I can't really talk about, but there was some fun moments in Salt Lake City that we were still able to find some fun out there. And I think as much as I don't like that town very much, I think it does get a little bit of a bad rap, but there is still fun to be had out there during the All-Star week.
I'm going to ask the follow-up question. Sean,
Okay.
Who is the biggest name person you've ever been in an elevator with?
Oh, that's very specific. I honestly have no idea.
Really? I mean, I would have
elevator.
assumed a guy that saved
Well, we
Paris
weren't
Hilton,
Paris Hilton. We were not in an elevator.
saved her life, who is now like she has a baby on the way through a surrogate, I think.
Yeah, it's
But
not mine that I know
congrats.
of. So, but the I do like. How about this though? I mean, I know this is you said not Kings, but how impressive was it? I don't know if anybody has seen it, but if you haven't, it's on my Twitter page. It's on the Fox 40 website and YouTube page. Domantas Sabonis post game of the All-Star game, shifting between English, Spanish, Lithuanian, 3 languages all in one time, and I'm just like, how hard is that to do? And he's like, oh, it's giving me a headache. Like, and I think he speaks I think he's 4 languages in total. Just really impressive. I've seen like Bogey do that once or twice. I know Keita speaks some languages, but like, my goodness, man, he was going through 3 different languages and with rapid fire questions from media. That was pretty impressive. I'm going to think on that elevator question, James, because I can't think of who else. I mean, Karl Malone's up there. That's a pretty famous person. I don't know if I've been in an elevator. I've certainly met more famous people, but
Who is the most
an
famous
elevator.
person that you were around at All-Star Weekend?
that I was around, Allen Iverson.
Oh, that's a good one.
Probably that. I tried to get, and that was just a very brief interaction. We just literally walked by each other, so it wasn't like we were hanging out. Yeah, Shaq maybe. That's pretty big up there. I tried to go catch up with Hassan Minhaj, who also went scoreless for Sacramento in the celebrity game, the Davis resident, but kept missing him, which was unfortunate.
Okay. Yeah, I know one All-Star weekend I was standing with J.E. Skeets and Taj, what were they at that time? The basketball
What were they?
Was it the Basketball Jones? What was it? They were like
the starters. They were the starters.
Oh, the starters. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the three of us were standing like right outside of this big clump of people, and I'm like, "Hey, there's Ben Stiller," and they're like, "Where?" I'm like, "He's like literally right in front of us." They're like, "But Ben Stiller's not very tall," and they're
No.
like, "I don't see him." So anyway, I like moved him over like a foot, both of them, and Ben Stiller was like 4 feet away from us with his wife. And I'm like, hey,
I saw on multiple occasions a very inebriated Julius Erving.
that's what I heard. Like that, yeah, there was
Yeah.
like Dr. J was living the high life.
Living it up. He was having
Yeah.
some fun.
Me and John Santiago actually one time we were at the All-Star game together, and Queen Latifah and Christina Aguilera walked by us. They were on the way to go do halftime or pre. I don't know what it was. Yeah. Anyway, All-Star Weekend's fun. You kind of get in these weird situations. For that specifically, the basketball itself is trash.
Yeah, and again, like I don't think I'd ever pay to go to All-Star Weekend ever. But there are everything that surrounds the game. There's a lot of fun to be had there, but yeah, just everything inside of All-Star Weekend in terms of what happens in a basketball setting is really rather kind of, I don't know, it's just disappointing.
Yeah, it's not great. Okay, do we have any final thoughts? Let's go to Brenden. Brenden, do you have any final thoughts?
I hope that Terrence Davis can carry over his pre-All-Star break performance that he had played in each of the last 9 games prior to the All-Star break and played at least 15 minutes in 7 of those 9, more than 20 in each of the last 3. 22 points in that second Dallas game, 11 against Phoenix, and in those 9 games, 42% from 3. I think when Terrence Davis is playing well, this rotation is a lot better off. So hopefully that carries over. I don't have the most confidence in TD being consistent, to be honest, but hopes are high.
No?
Shocker, but not really.
Sean, final thoughts?
Yeah, I guess before that, Melissa asked who was my favorite non-Kings player to interview at All-Star Game. I actually didn't interview very many. I think the only one I interviewed was Jabari Smith Jr. And it was okay. We were just talking about his old man, his dad, who was a King. But probably Tisha Penichero, to be honest. And I know that's probably a letdown for some people, but it was fun to just catch up with her. I used to cover the Monarchs, and she's doing great. So it was fun to. I'm going to share that conversation at some point this week and put that up there and just see how both Kata and Tisha talk about one another. And I'd say final thoughts. I'm out here at spring training covering Giants primarily. We'll do A's tomorrow, James. So if you have some A's storylines, send them my way. But it's fun because at least with the Giants, there's like 4 dudes right off the top of my head that and Alyssa Nacken, that's a dude. I don't call her a dude, but Woodland. You've got Logan Webb from Rockland. You've got Sammy Long from Fair Oaks, Del Campo High School. Then you got JD Davis, who went to Elk Grove High School where I graduated, and all these guys are like big Kings fans. Logan's probably the biggest. Sammy and him are, they've been at several games. They want to light the beam. They love it. And to walk into the clubhouse and in spring training and just be able to talk to those dudes about the Kings. And then you've got a lot of guys who were spent time in Sacramento as AAA members with the River Cats, and it's just funny, man. It's just funny to see how the Kings have even trickled their way into the Kings locker room. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, I think I would just ask A's players, what's hotter, Arizona or Las Vegas? And just mess with them. Like, see what you
Just
get.
do that?
Just do that. Just
I'll
like
do that.
Las Vegas or Arizona.
God, it's depressing. I'm not looking forward to going to the A's tomorrow. And it's
I
nothing
wouldn't go
against
cover
the
'em.
A's. I have nothing against them. Like, I hate the Dodgers, if people know that. Like, I grew up a Giants fan. I despise the Dodgers. I don't hate the A's, and they beat my team in the World Series when I was 8 years old or whatever. So I don't hate the A's, but God, I want them to stay in Oakland. I really do. But this is just ugly. It's just been
Well, it's horrible. It's the worst
It's
thing.
terrible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's absolutely atrocious. I'll answer that. My favorite non-Kings player to interview at All-Star Weekend. The one cool thing about All-Star Weekend that I particularly like is that it's also where they do the Hall of Fame announcements for the finalists. And so one year I was able to get like Hakeem Olajuwon and Alonzo Mourning, and just like they're crazy like random legends walking around
Yeah.
in that arena. And to me, that's always a lot of fun to meet the guys that you didn't get to cover because they were before your time, but you still watched as, a young person. And so like watching those guys getting to interview both of those guys was a lot of fun. Outside of that, I think Let It Snow. That's my final thought. I love the snow. I love how the snow is quiet, and you go outside and it's quiet and it has that weird calmness to it. So I'm looking forward to snow. I'm hoping that it's snowing. I don't know if that means for me making it to the Kings game tomorrow night, if it does snow a bunch, but I'll figure it out. Get in the Suburban and find my way down there. But yeah, let it snow. We've got 25 games left. Sacramento Kings are in it. They're the 3 seed in the Western Conference, and they've got a lot to prove here in the final 25 games, but this should be a fun run. And we're excited to be here and cover it all the way down the stretch. We probably will have another podcast later in the week, whether it's all 3 of us or just 2 of us. I think will depend on Sean's travel arrangements and where he's going to be. But we'll try to fit one in after, let's see, the Kings play Thursday and Friday, back to back. Maybe we'll figure something out for Saturday. So, you guys good?
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Great.
Yeah. All right.
Cocaine Bear looks fun.
That dude.
It does look fun, doesn't it?
It really
Piques
does.
my
It looks
interest.
fun.
Oh, I bet it does.
Okay, Sean.
I
Okay,
did-
Sean.
I did go watch Ant-Man and Wasp and whatever the Quantum.
So Paul Rudd,
whatever.
right? He's Ant-Man.
Yeah.
That's fun.
It was, but it was kind of like Shark Boy and Lava Girl. Like it had
I
like
have
this
no idea what you're talking. What
I
the
do.
hell is that?
really like weird fake like child like
Watch
Nickelodeon
your
feel
mouth.
to it.
I loved that movie, James.
Yeah.
I was a child, but I loved that movie.
Exactly.
Was?
I don't know. I did. I thought it was okay. Like you got done. You're like, I don't know. It wasn't great. It was see, Spy Kids 3. It was very much like that, like Spy Kids or something like it. It had a weird feel where you're like, okay, that's just not very good. It's okay, but like everything seemed like forced. Even Bill Murray, like his appearance felt forced.
He's in. He's in Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Okay. Thought for a minute. I thought you were talking about. Yeah. Shark.
I don't know.
Thrown by Shark Boy.
Shark Boy and Lava Girl.
No, I don't know what that means.
Thank you, Bryce. You have holes. I know the reference, but no one else does.
No,
Excellent.
I don't know what's happened.
It's from the movie. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Kings Beat podcast. Thanks for joining us. It was last minute. We just kind of threw this thing together and, of course, just half-assed it the whole way through. And you have all stuck with us and are still sitting here while we just ramble on about nothing, which is spectacular. If you're still watching, give us a thumbs up. We'd appreciate it. Join us here by subscribing. Subscribe to the Kings Beat. Go to thekingsbeat.com. We greatly appreciate it. Become a premium subscriber to the Kings Beat so you can get invites to the happy hour and all of the content that we create on the Kings Beat. So
Including tasteful nudes.
Tasteful. Whoa. Hey-o.
all of us.
So for
Different site. I got
Jeez.
James. Look at that.
Box
Got
40,
him.
Sean Cunningham, and Brenden Nunes from the Kings Post podcast. Excuse me. I am James
He's
Hammer,
wound-
Kings
he's wound
Insider
up.
for
Look-
ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. See you guys soon.